You wake before the sun does. There's a silence, like the world is still deciding if it wants to begin. And in that fragile moment between night and dawn, you roll up your bedding and press your boots into the cold, dew-soaked grass. You're not the only one awake. A few others are stirring quietly in the half-light, brushing sleep from their eyes and strapping down what's left of their lives onto wagons that groan under the weight of hope. Today is the first day of the trail of the West, of whatever life is waiting beyond everything you've ever known. And yet, it doesn't feel like a beginning. It feels like an unraveling, like the thread of your old life has been snipped, and now you're being pulled west by a promise you can't quite name. The Oregon Trail wasn't a trail, not really. Not in the way roads are supposed to be. It was more like a memory, passed from voice to voice, map to map, mile to mile, 1,000 thin ruts in the grass and dust, carved by iron wheels and worn-out dreams. You didn't follow the trail. You followed the people ahead of you, and they followed the ones ahead of them. And all of you followed an idea. Not riches, not glory, just the thought that somewhere out there was land, untouched, unclaimed, unspoiled, a place to start over, a place to simply be. They told you it would take 5 months, 2,000 miles, but that's only if you survive. They didn't tell you about the hunger that gnaws between your ribs, or the river crossings that take more lives than the sickness, or the sounds the oxen make when they collapse, mid-step, from exhaustion. They didn't tell you how quickly you'd forget what soft feels like, how the ground becomes your bed and the sky your roof, and you never feel clean again. Not really. They didn't tell you that you'd bury friends, that you'd whisper goodbye into dirt, because there was no time to stop. It starts in Missouri, a little place that seems big when you arrive and suddenly small when you leave it behind. You pack your wagon with everything you think you need. Flour, salt pork, coffee, tools, blankets, and you forget the most important thing, space for mistakes. Because the trail does not forgive overconfidence. It chews it up and spits it out. And every extra pound in that wagon will come back to haunt you. The oxen, they're slow but steady. You grow to admire them and pity them. They pull without complaint. They trust that you know where you're going, but sometimes you don't. No one does. The first few days, there's still laughter. Children chase each other between the wagons. Mothers hum familiar songs as they cook by firelight. Fathers walk beside their families, tall with purpose. But as the miles stretch, the sounds change. Voices get quieter. The jokes dry up. The trail starts to steal things, slowly at first. A pan, a shoe, a wheel spoke. Then faster. A mule, a child, a breath. At night, when the fire crackles and the sky is littered with stars, you find yourself staring into the dark, wondering if the West is real, if this trail leads to anything more than dust and disappointment, if the price you'll pay in hunger, in pain, in grief, will be worth it. No one answers, because the trail doesn't talk. It only watches. The trail doesn't talk. It only watches. And every mile you travel, you feel its gaze grow heavier, like an ancient thing, judging whether you're worthy of the place you're chasing. Your hands develop blisters in places you didn't know had skin. Your lips crack, then split. The sun scorches everything it touches, but the nights freeze just to remind you who's in charge. And yet, you keep walking, because it's not about strength anymore. It's about stubbornness, about waking up one more time than you want to. Some days blur into each other. You measure time by wagon wheels and river bends. The calendar loses meaning, replaced by moments like when we crossed the Platte, when James got sick, when Sarah lost the baby. That's how the trail records time, not with numbers, but with loss. Illness spreads like fire in a dry forest. Dysentery, cholera, typhoid. You learn the names of these killers quickly. One morning, someone wakes up with a fever. By nightfall, they're wrapped in cloth and lowered into a shallow grave. There are no tombstones out here, just rocks. Sometimes a name scratched into a board with shaking hands. The ground becomes a silent ledger, recording every soul it claims. You begin to understand something terrifying, that the trail doesn't care who you are, rich or poor, educated or not. It levels everyone. It humbles the proud and toughens the weak. You watch as men who once barked orders in town now cry silently under the stars, and women who'd never seen a wound clean and sew like battlefield surgeons. Children age before your eyes. They stop asking, "Are we there yet?" and start asking, "Will we ever be?" And still, the trail stretches on, through prairie grass that dances in the wind, over hills that seem small until you're climbing them, across rivers that bite with cold teeth. You learn to read the land. The way clouds stack tells you when rain is coming. The color of the grass tells you how far water might be. You learn the silence of fear, the quiet that spreads when you realize you're lost, or when you spot smoke in the distance and can't tell if it's friendly. And yet, in all that hardship, there are moments that surprise you. A cool breeze after days of heat, a patch of berries you didn't expect, a stranger who shares what little they have just because they know what it's like to have nothing. These small mercies become sacred, and every time you think you might collapse, the trail gives you just enough to keep moving, not because it wants you to survive, but because it's testing how badly you want to. There comes a point when the trail stops feeling like a journey and starts feeling like a sentence. You forget what it was like to live in a house, to close a door behind you, to sit in silence that wasn't broken by wagon wheels or coughing. Your world shrinks to a moving camp of tired faces, and even those start to fade. Some families fall behind. A wheel breaks, an oxen goes lame, someone collapses with fever, and before you know it, they're gone. Not dead, just too far back to catch up. You look over your shoulder and realize how quietly people vanish on the trail, like smoke, like dust. Even the strong become ghosts. You pass wagons left abandoned, tipped to one side like fallen bones, personal things scattered in the grass, too heavy to carry, too painful to keep. A rocking chair, a doll with no eyes, a Bible with pages torn out for kindling. You realize letting go is part of moving forward out here. And then there's the silence. It grows. It changes you. At first, it was peaceful. Now, it's something else. It hums inside your ears when the fire goes out. It follows you like a shadow when you walk alone. And it whispers questions you don't want to answer. Why are you doing this? How many more will die? What if there's nothing waiting for you at the end? But there are also moments that cut through the gloom, when the prairie opens up wide under a golden sky, and for just a second, you feel free. When the mountains rise in the distance, not as barriers, but as proof that you're going somewhere. When someone smiles, a real smile, for the first time in days, because someone else shared a joke or sang a song that reminded them of home. These moments don't last, but they're enough. Enough to make you keep putting one foot in front of the other. There's a kind of love that grows on the trail, not the kind from romance novels, but the quiet, desperate love of people surviving together. You share water without asking. You carry someone else's child because their mother is too weak. You hold hands when someone is buried, and you say nothing because nothing needs to be said. This love is what binds the wagons together, even when the ropes and axles fall apart. And as the trail bends westward, the terrain changes again. The flatlands give way to rock and ridge. The winds grow sharper, the rivers deeper, and the sky, it feels closer somehow. Like the heavens are watching what you'll do next, because the hardest part is still ahead. The air is thinner now, not just in breath, but in spirit. The trail doesn't offer challenges anymore. It offers ultimatums. You either climb this ridge, or you don't go on. You cross that river, or you stay behind forever. There's no room left for hesitation, and no one left to carry those who can't walk anymore. By now your clothes don't fit. They hang loose, worn, nearly translucent from sun and sweat. You've lost weight, sleep, time, and pieces of yourself you'll never get back. You're not who you were in Missouri. None of you are. The strong are quieter. The loud are gone, and the ones who were once ignored now lead the way. Out here, character reveals itself not in words, but in how people carry wood, or wait for the elderly to catch up, or stay behind to bury the dead. You reach the Blue Mountains, tall, jagged reminders that the worst isn't over yet. Wagons creak like old bones. Oxen wheeze through bleeding noses. The children don't talk anymore, not out of fear, but because they've learned silence. You watch one wagon break apart on the slope. Its wheel splinters, and everything inside spills like a wound opening. Clothing, tools, a photograph, all tumbling into the canyon. No one speaks, because we all know it could be ours next. But somewhere, in that thin air, you begin to smell pine. Not the dust, not the animal stink, but something else. Green, new. The land is changing again, and it starts to feel like maybe, just maybe, this suffering has a shape, a direction, an edge. Then one morning, you wake up to birdsong and mist, and the sound of wind in trees taller than any church back home. You crest a final ridge, and there, stretching below, valleys, rivers, land, not empty, but alive, not wild, but waiting, and someone whispers the word, Oregon. You don't cry. You're too tired, but your hands shake, your chest tightens, and for the first time in months, you don't feel like a traveler. You feel like someone who has arrived. But what did it cost? There's a small graveyard near the final stop, fresh mounds, crosses, names you remember, faces you almost forgot. The trail doesn't let everyone pass. It asks a price, and the West is paid in people. You build a cabin, you plant seeds, you wash in a river that doesn't taste like sorrow, but the trail stays with you. In the way your hands ache in the morning, in how you still check the sky for rain, in the dreams where wagon wheels turn endlessly. No one back east will ever understand what it took. They'll read stories in newspapers. They'll imagine adventure and bravery. They'll say how lucky you were. But you'll know. You'll remember the dust, the hunger, the miles measured in heartbreak. And you'll know that the Oregon Trail wasn't a road, it was a reckoning.